There is a simple law in energy psychology. Whenever someone intentionally pulls their energy away from you, they do not disappear. They simply step back one step to see whether you will move toward them. And in relationships with narcissists, this shows itself most clearly through silence. When they suddenly stop texting, vanish in the middle of a conversation, or shift from warm to cold overnight, what you feel is not a breakup, it is an interruption of energy flow. Your body reacts before your mind does. Restlessness, anxiety, a sense that a frequency inside you has been disrupted. And right when you are asking yourself, what just happened? On the other side, they are still connected to you, just passively, not through words. The cord has not been cut. It has simply been stretched, so you feel the tension first. That is why their silence never comes from genuine emotion. It is an energetic adjustment. They pull back so you feel the void. They create space so you want to fill it. They stop giving so you feel compelled to give first. They destabilize you to push you into the role of the pursuer. They understand that if they speak, you have information. If they explain, you have clarity. But if they stay silent, you are forced to search for answers, and your energy begins to orbit around them. This is the moment of energetic reversal that Jung calls energy inversion, where they remain still and observe while you become the one reacting. For this reason, their silence is not maturity, not letting go, and certainly not healing. It is a strategy to test whether you are still their emotional supply. A person who has truly left ends their energy entirely. They do not watch your stories, do not like old posts, do not appear vaguely through social media, but someone who stays silent while maintaining indirect presence has not left at all. They are waiting for you to reach toward the gap they created. At the beginning of this video, we will look directly into the nature of that silence, not as withdrawal, but as an energetic test, a strategy designed to measure whether your mind still revolves around them or has returned to yourself. And once you understand this principle, you will know exactly when a narcissist is quietly waiting for you to break the silence and why they need it so desperately. Part 1. When they disappear. How the energy flow actually shifts. When a narcissist suddenly withdraws, whether it's silence for a few hours, a few days, or even weeks, the first thing that changes is not physical distance, but the rhythm of energy between the two of you. Every relationship, healthy or toxic, operates through a kind of emotional electric field. When the connection is active, you feel seen, responded to, and part of a reciprocal loop. But when they abruptly cut the flow, your nervous system detects the shift before your mind does. You feel the drop, as if the current has been blocked for no reason. This is exactly what the narcissist understands. Silence does not make them lose power. Silence makes you lose balance. They don't need to shout, blame, or explain. Simply disappearing is enough to create an energetic void, a space your emotional reflexes immediately start filling with thoughts, worries, or attempts to interpret what happened. Narcissists know that most sensitive-hearted people fear ambiguity more than they fear the truth, and by withdrawing without warning, they craft the perfect level of ambiguity, precise enough to make you turn back toward them for answers. On a deeper energetic level, this is not accidental. Narcissists are individuals who can read emotional energy fields very quickly. They know when you start to feel dependent, when you become anxious about distance, when you fear losing connection. Their instinct tells them that if they pull back at the right moment, the moment they sense you growing stronger or beginning to see them clearly, your energy will instantly tilt back in their direction. And that is the real goal, for you to adjust while they stay still. Psychologically, this is called a reaction gap, a technique manipulators use to make someone feel responsible for repairing something they didn't break. Energetically, it is a kind of polarity inversion. They lower their frequency, you raise yours. They stay still, you move. They go silent, You think. They don't text. You wonder what you did. They don't explain. You search for reasons that don't exist. The most important truth is this. For a narcissist, this silence is not for reflection, and it's not to let the relationship cool down and heal. It is how they reclaim power. They want to see whether their absence is strong enough to knock your energy off its normal axis. They want to know whether you still depend on their reactions. And deeper still, they want to know whether you are willing to lower your boundaries just to make your discomfort go away. This explains a very common phenomenon. The more you love them, the more silence destabilizes you. The more emotional you are, the more you blame yourself. And the kinder you are, the more likely you are to be the first one to reach out even when you did nothing wrong. And that is why they do it not to end the relationship, but to test whether the emotional energy between you still leans in their favor. In the next section, we will dive into the very specific signs that their silence is not accidental but strategic, and more importantly, the signs that prove they are quietly waiting for you to break it. Part 2. The energy signs that show they are quietly waiting for you to break the silence. To understand how much a narcissist is waiting for you to make the first move, you don't need to listen to their words. You only need to watch how their energy behaves around you. In relational psychology, there is a concept called energetic residue, the emotional echo left behind by someone who wants to stay connected, even while pretending the relationship is over. And narcissists leave this residue most strongly when they want you to break the silence. The first sign is in how they leave. A person who truly wants to end things will end them clearly. A full sentence, a clean action, no open door. But a narcissist always leaves through a gap. An unfinished sentence, a conversation left hanging, a vague, do whatever you want, I don't know anymore, or a sudden unexplained silence. This is not emotional irresponsibility. It is an energetic tactic. They leave a blurred exit because they know this lack of clarity keeps pulling you back. Ambiguity is the hook, not the accident. The second sign appears through social media. They don't message you, but suddenly they become more active than usual. They post things they know you will see: a trip, a quote, a too-forced smile, or a song that hints at emotion. They know your energy is sensitive, that you are easily triggered by indirect signals. So they don't need to contact you directly. They only need to create small ripples on the surface to see if you react. Most importantly, they always post just enough for you to feel it, but never enough for you to understand it. This ambiguity is an energetic vibration test to see whether your frequency is still tied to theirs or you've shifted to a new one. The third sign is indirect presence. They view your story but don't message. They like an old post. They hover around your profile at the perfect timing. You feel them watching you even without visible proof. This is not imagination. It is resonance tracking, monitoring your emotional frequency. Narcissists do this instinctively. They want to know whether you still exist within their energetic field. Someone who has truly released you will not scan your energy like this. But someone waiting for you to speak will always keep one eye on your movements because they need to know whether their silence strategy is working. The fourth sign, they intentionally trigger the insecurity they know is your weak spot. If they know you hate being misunderstood, they leave during conflict. If they know you fear abandonment, they disappear at the exact moment you need reassurance. If they know you're sensitive to coldness, they change overnight. This is not random behavior. It is an energy manipulation pattern designed to push you into imbalance. Narcissists know insecurity is what makes you break the silence first, and they always strike the point you're most reactive to. The fifth sign, their silence has a rhythm, not consistent, but rhythmic. They disappear when you are strong, then reappear when you are vulnerable. They go quiet when you regain your footing, then send an indirect signal the moment you start to stabilize again. This is not coincidence. This is energy timing, choosing the energetic moment that keeps you in the stickiest place. Not close enough to leave, not far enough to detach. It is in this suspended middle space that narcissists feel the most powerful. Put all these signs together, and one truth becomes unmistakable. A narcissist is never fully silent. They are simply adjusting their level of presence, so you are always the one who has to move toward them. This is not emotional need. This is energetic control. And once you recognize this pattern, you will understand that their silence is only the surface. The real intention lies beneath, in the energetic layer they assume you cannot see. Part 3. Why they don't reach out, yet still want to return to your energy field. The biggest reason a narcissist stays silent while still clinging to your energy field is this. They want to influence you without being responsible for you. When they text, when they call, when they show up, they are forced to participate in the relationship at a human level where real emotions exist, real expectations exist, and real requirements exist. But when they stay silent, they can interact with you on an energetic level, a place where they can benefit without having to take any responsibility. Silence gives them a safety that direct communication cannot. On the psychological level, this ties directly to their fragile ego structure. Narcissists cannot tolerate the possibility of being rejected or appearing weak. If they reach out first, they risk you not replying. If they apologize, they risk confronting proof of their wrongdoing. If they check on you, they risk discovering you've moved beyond their influence. All of these threaten the deepest fear within their ego, the fear of no longer being the one in power, so they don't initiate. Not because they don't miss you, but because they cannot tolerate the risk that you might no longer revolve around them. On the energetic level, the dynamic is even clearer. A person who once fed off your emotional energy through your attention, concern, anxiety, or your efforts to explain and repair, instantly feels the deficit when that flow changes. When you go silent, they feel the drop sharply. But instead of reaching out authentically, they choose the indirect path, viewing your stories, posting vague quotes, leaving small breadcrumbs for you to see. These actions don't require them to face you, yet they're enough to stimulate emotional circuits within you. It is a one-way energetic connection. You vibrate, they only observe. This leads to a crucial truth. The narcissist wants you to come back, but they want you to be the one who does it. They want you to bring the energy, while they simply stand at the receiving end. A call from you proves you're still in their orbit. A text from you confirms their silence worked. A question like, "Where are you?" or "Is something wrong?" is evidence that you're still emotionally affected by them. And that makes them feel safe, powerful, superior. The strange part is, they crave you, but not in the way a person in love does. They crave your energy, your concern, your heartbreak, your distraction. That is what sustains them internally, not you as a person. And this is why they don't reach out first. If they initiate, they break the entire power dynamic they are trying so hard to preserve. A message from them makes it seem like they need you. Their silence makes it seem like you need them. To the narcissist, that is the difference between feeling rejected and feeling victorious. So, they choose to re-enter your energy field without action, only through indirect presence, ambiguous signals, and a wide enough gap for your mind to fill. The simple, cruel truth is this. A narcissist does not want to lose you. They only want to remain the chosen one, and never become the pursuer. In their worldview, the ultimate requirement for power is this. You must need them more than they need you, and silence is their sharpest weapon to maintain that balance, at least until you finally see the game. Part 4. When you stop reacting, how the energy shifts and the moment they begin to panic. The most dangerous moment for a narcissist is not when you're angry, not when you're crying, and not when you're trying to explain the relationship. All of those are still energy, still attention, still connection. The moment that truly destabilizes them is when you no longer react, when their silence no longer triggers your confusion, when the vague signals they release no longer cause an emotional ripple in you, when the old like, the half cryptic story, or the suggestive post suddenly becomes empty because you're no longer feeding energy into it. Energetically, the shift is dramatic. Before, they were the center your energy orbited around. But when you remain still and do not respond, the energy field reverses. For the first time, they cannot control the rhythm of energy between you. And narcissists are extremely sensitive to this shift because it strikes at their deepest fear, the fear of losing control. When you go silent, you're not just withholding words. You are withdrawing the energetic dependency they are accustomed to receiving. Their brain instantly registers this deficit like an emotional addict entering withdrawal. They feel empty, disoriented, restless. But they don't understand where these sensations come from, because they are not used to facing their inner states. They only know one thing: something is wrong. And in that moment, the panic begins. On the psychological level, your lack of reaction removes the emotional reference point they always relied on. When you don't follow their rhythm, they no longer know where you are emotionally, what you're thinking, or whether you still belong to them. For a narcissist, not being able to predict your reaction is not an inconvenience. It is a threat. Emotional maturity allows healthy people to tolerate ambiguity. A narcissist's fragile ego does not. They need to feel certain they remain the center of attention. They need to know that silence is enough to make you run back. But when you don't run, they feel abandoned. Not emotionally abandoned, but energetically abandoned. This is when they begin changing strategies. If silence no longer works, they will switch to patterns that restore their sense of power. Posting more provocative content, making sudden appearances, sending vague messages, or using old memories to reignite the energy loop that worked in the past. They are trying to restart the cycle you just broke. But the most important thing is this: all these actions come from insecurity, not love. Energetically, their panic shows up clearly through resonance pull, the force they try to generate to drag you back into their frequency. When you become calm and non-reactive, your energetic field becomes stable. A stable field is incompatible with their chaotic frequency, and this is when they feel the disconnection they fear most. They can no longer influence you. They can no longer manipulate your emotions. And worst of all, they can no longer feed on your energy. This is why many narcissists return abruptly after a period of silence, sometimes dramatically. A half apology, a deep-sounding message, a personal struggle shared suddenly, or a nostalgic memory sent late at night. They don't return because of you. They return because of the energetic deficit, the loss of supply, the feeling of being empty, which terrifies them more than anything else. Your calmness flips the entire power dynamic they once controlled. And even though they will never admit it, the moment you stop reacting is the moment they realize silence is no longer their weapon. It has become yours. Part 5. When your silence becomes sovereignty, your energy changes and they are forced to adapt. When you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop sending even a single drop of emotional energy in their direction, something very important happens. The frequency of your energy begins to return to its original state. If all this time you've been operating at a stretched frequency, always reacting, always waiting, always worrying, then the moment you become consciously silent, your energetic field starts to stabilize again. And it is precisely this stability that strips them of the ability to control the rhythm of your emotions like before. On the energetic level, this shows up as a kind of recentering. You no longer orbit around them. You begin to orbit around yourself. Before, the smallest move from them was enough to shake you. But now, even when they try to send stronger signals, posting something suggestive, creating jealousy scenarios, quietly watching your stories, even sending a vague message, you remain still. Your stillness is what makes them fail. It makes them realize that your energy is no longer easy to pull, no longer easy to steer, and most importantly, no longer belongs to them. This is the pivot point most narcissists cannot handle, because they are not used to facing someone who is no longer inside their field of influence. When you are silent with sovereignty, you are not just keeping distance. You are completely changing the energetic framework the relationship once operated on. On the psychological level, this shift appears in the way you no longer try to interpret their behavior in a way that benefits them. You no longer seek closure from someone who never gives closure. You no longer chase vague signals, no longer dissect every post, no longer blame yourself for things they did wrong. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. And from that moment on, you begin to act based on reality rather than illusion. What truly terrifies the narcissist is not losing you as a person. It is losing their ability to influence your emotions. When you stand firm in yourself, they feel a void that they used to fill with your energy. This leads to a stage narcissists rarely want you to know about. They are forced to adapt. No longer able to pull you in with ambiguity, they switch to other tactics, sometimes more subtle, sometimes more dramatic. Some choose to come back gently with sudden kindness. Some choose to hit hard with emotional provocation. Some choose to pretend they've changed with half-hearted apologies or self-pitying stories. But regardless of the form, the core remains the same. They are trying to find a new grip inside your energetic field, a grip they lost the moment you chose silence. The paradox is this: when you are truly silent, not silent out of anger, but silent because you've seen the truth, you are no longer in the game. You've stepped out while they are still standing inside it, hoping you'll come back so things can return to how they were. And it is precisely at this point that they begin to sense the truth they've always feared most. The distance you create through awareness is stronger than any distance they ever created through manipulation. You are silent, but you are not disconnected from yourself. They are silent, but they have lost the right to connect with you. And that difference is what transforms you from a source of supply into a sovereign being, someone who is no longer pulled by other people's energy, but generates their own energetic rhythm. Part 6. When they try to come back, their response patterns, when they realize your energy has changed, when your silence is no longer fear but sovereignty, when your energetic field is no longer contracted but stable and self-contained, the narcissist will feel this change like an invisible collision. They don't need to see you directly, don't need to hear you speak. Their instincts, highly tuned to emotional signals, will immediately sound the alarm. This source of supply is no longer vibrating at the old frequency, and that is the moment that triggers their attempt to return. On the energetic level, your shift is like closing a door they were used to walking through as if it were their private entrance. They feel that closing not through your actions, but through the sense of absence in the connection. Before, a small movement on their part was enough to make you react. Now they make louder noise, and your energetic field still stands still. It is this stillness that forces them to change their approach. And interestingly, each narcissist will react according to their own pattern, depending on how deep their insecurity runs. The first pattern is the gentle comeback. A short message, an emoji, a casual question like, "How have you been?" This is not genuine care, it is a ping test. They want to see whether they still fall within your emotional range. If you reply, even with a polite sentence, they feel the energetic pixel restoring, and they will move further in. If you don't reply, they realize the old energetic rhythm no longer works. The second pattern is the emotionalized comeback. They tell you they're struggling, hint they're not okay, share that life feels empty or difficult. This is a tactic aimed directly at your compassionate energy field. They know you once reacted strongly to other people's pain, so they use staged vulnerability as an emotional magnet. But if your energy is now steady, you will see that this vulnerability is not for connection, but to pull you back into the healer role. The third pattern is a return through nostalgia. This strategy is very familiar. They send an old photo, bring up a beautiful memory, or ask about something you both used to enjoy. Energetically, this is a way to reactivate your old emotional frequency, the one they used to connect with and feed off. But if you've shifted frequencies, nostalgia no longer pulls you back. It only reveals that they have nothing new to offer besides recycling the past. The fourth pattern is a comeback through competition and jealousy, posting pictures with someone else, showing off success, displaying fake happiness. This is not truly for others to see. It is designed to test whether you will react to that signal. If you view, like, ask questions, or show any emotional agitation, they know they still have power. If you remain still, they realize that game no longer works. The final pattern, and the most revealing, is the dramatic return, creating conflict, throwing shade, provoking you, or even attacking you outright. When they sense that all the softer tactics have failed to break your stable energy field, they try to generate stronger turbulence to see if you'll react. This is the stage where many people mistake their behavior as angry because they still care, when in reality it is anger over losing control of your energy. No matter how they appear, the core remains unchanged. They are not coming back because they want genuine connection. They are coming back to test whether they still affect your energy. And what confuses them most is realizing you no longer orbit around them. Not because you hate them, not because you've gone cold, but because you have returned to your own energetic axis, where your inner peace is stronger than their outer chaos. At this stage, you don't need to fight, don't need to prove anything, don't need to block them everywhere. Your energetic field naturally rejects what does not resonate. And this is what true escape from the cycle looks like. Not cutting people off in aggression, but no longer vibrating in tune with them. Part 7. When you hold the new frequency long enough, their energy unravels and yourself rebuilds. When you maintain sovereign silence for long enough, not reacting, not revolving around them, not letting them pull you back into the old energetic rhythm, a natural separation begins to occur between the two energy fields. Jung called this individuation through separation, the process of becoming yourself by detaching from energies that pull you off course. And this is the point where your world and theirs start to move in completely different directions. On your side, stillness is no longer effort. It becomes a state. In the beginning, you had to try not to react, but once you are firmly anchored in the new frequency, silence stops being a strategy and becomes a quality of maturity. Your energetic field becomes closed to distortion. You start to sense your inner boundaries clearly, where you are no longer sucked into other people's emotional storms, no longer thrown off balance by ambiguity, no longer giving your energy to those who only know how to take and never to give. On the psychological level, this is when you break out of the pattern of reacting to others and move into the pattern of responding from your own center. You begin to see clearly what you couldn't see before. They were never truly powerful, only dependent on feeling and control. You were never weak, only drained. You were never blind, only operating at the wrong frequency. Meanwhile, on their side, the opposite process unfolds. When a narcissist can no longer affect you, cannot trigger you, cannot shake you, cannot pull you back into the old loop, the emotional supply they once drew from you stops flowing their way. Energetically, it's like losing a charging source they had assumed would always be there. They begin to feel a lack, not in a romantic sense, but in the sense of a fragile psychological structure losing one of its supports. They become irritable without knowing why. They grow restless. They look at you more often through social media. They think about you not out of love, but because your silence places them in a state they don't recognize, a state of non-control. The important thing is this: when you hold your new frequency long enough, they cannot maintain the old illusion. Jung describes this as the shadow losing its anchor. Their inflated ego, which needs reflection from others to feel real, begins to collapse. This is the phase where many narcissists fall into energetic chaos. They repeat the same patterns with new people more quickly. They search for stronger sources of supply, or they try to return to you in even more dramatic ways. Not because you are so uniquely special that they can't forget you, but because the energy you once gave them was strong and steady enough that no one can replace it immediately. When you disappear from their energetic field, they do not lose a person, they lose a psychological fuel source. On your side, once the new frequency has stabilized, you begin to experience something you thought you'd never have: relief. Not relief because they are gone, but relief because you are no longer being dragged into energies that are not yours. Jung calls this returning to the center, where your inner light and shadow are no longer at war, where your worth is no longer tied to pleasing others, where you no longer confuse chaos with connection. Your energetic field becomes selective. You no longer absorb signals that don't fit. You no longer give energy just because someone demands it, and you are no longer drawn to relationships that drain you. This is when the truth becomes unmistakably clear. You are no longer the same person. You are no longer attracted to those who create turmoil, no longer feel responsible for other people's emotions, no longer confuse their silence with your worth. You see silence for what it is: a tactic, not a statement of your value. And the thing that bothers the narcissist most is this simple reality: they are no longer the center of your energy. Once you reach this stage, you don't need to slam doors, don't need rage, don't need revenge. Your energy filters out what does not belong to you. And they, whether they like it or not, are forced to leave your energetic field because they no longer have anything to hold on to. The truth few people dare to say out loud is this: a connection with a narcissist does not end on the day they disappear. It ends on the day you stop needing answers, when their silence no longer triggers you, when their vague signals no longer pull you back in, when the question, "Why did they do that?" no longer drains your energy. That is the real ending, because in that moment, the emotional and energetic loop they once controlled has nowhere left to operate. On the energetic level, you have shifted into a different frequency, the frequency of someone sovereign, not someone spun by another person's emotions. You no longer vibrate to their instability. You no longer pay attention to the tiny movements that once kept you anxious for days, and because you no longer react, their silence loses its power. It becomes an empty echo, unable to touch your energetic field the way it once did. Jung once said, "When the inner world changes, the outer world must follow." You don't need to push anyone out of your life. Once you stand firmly in your new frequency, anything that is not compatible will naturally fall out of your energetic field. On their side, the truth unfolds in the opposite direction. When the silent treatment no longer makes you spin, they lose the power they once believed was inherent to them. They can no longer trigger your emotions. They can no longer predict you. They can no longer position you in the role of the one who chases. For a narcissist, this is not just the loss of influence. It is the loss of identity, because their ego is built on the ability to control other people's emotional energy. And when you stand firm, that structure starts to collapse. The remarkable thing is, you did not defeat them. You simply returned to yourself. And that return is so powerful that it dissolves every power dynamic they once constructed.